What is up, guys? And welcome back to the second episode of the U Press Play Sports Podcast. We got another loaded show on deck. This is going to be another great one. And I'm glad to say we got more people here now. Of course, we have sports editor Richard Pereira. We got photo editor Eston Parker. But now we have added the man, the myth himself, staff writer Zach Weinberger to the fold. Zach, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. I was on the entertainment pod, so now I'm making my way to the sports pod. So I'm gonna try to have the trifecta. I'm trying to be on every single pod. But
This man's gonna be cool. Everywhere. He's gonna be haunting your earwaves from every podcast that the UP does. But now, for real, we're excited to have him here, ready to talk some sports. But always we start off with FAU sports. We're gonna start off with the soccer teams. They had a couple games this week. FAU women's soccer team lost 3-0 to South Florida. And the men's team recently picked up a couple games against Stetson. Richard, Eston, you guys were at those games. What did you guys think?
So I'm gonna take the lead on this one.
Yeah,
because I was at all the games.
Mm-hmm.
The men played pretty decent for their first match against I forget who it was off the top of my head, but I know
Florida.
Yeah, UNF. Thank you. So they won 1-0. It's a pretty. Again, it was about what you would expect for the first game of the season. There wasn't much creativity. They had but their captain, I forget who scored the goal, but he hit a really nice free kick.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah. So, and then for the women's, the first game they played Utah Valley and lost 5-1. At least FAU scored the first goal. So they started the season off technically on a high note. And then, we've allowed 8 unanswered goals so far. So it's been pretty tough. The second game against USF, Richard, you and I watched that. That was, USF just suffocated FAU. There's no other way to put it. And USF, the passes they were putting in that led up to all their goals, it really was that was pro level from what I saw. So tough start, but hopefully, especially for the women's team, hopefully they'll rebound and get going in the season because it hasn't been pretty to start.
While I haven't been able to watch the men's opener because I didn't have the channel to watch it, I did see the goal, and it was a very good free kick from Camarero to start FAU men's soccer very well to start off the season. Their next game against Stetson will be tomorrow at 6 p.m. I'm optimistic about their chances. Hopefully they can keep their winning hopes going. For the women's soccer, they just... Geez, I wasn't expecting that at all. I believe I underestimated Utah Valley because I checked their record and they actually competed in their conference, especially getting to the final of their conference tournament. So I pretty much underestimated them as they clearly did against FAU, blowing us out 5-1. So there was a lot to learn from there. And then the game against USF, which I did go to, and FAU just couldn't get much going offensively because, to be frank, South Florida, they suffocated us. They had basically had a defensive wall the entire game against FAU. FAU couldn't get any good shots on USF. And then not to mention the defensive flaws, which Eston mentioned, that USF was putting in through balls. They had the sides on the field, the sides on the pitch. They were wide open for USF to take advantage of. And those defensive issues are issues that FAU has got to resolve immediately. You cannot leave defensive holes on the sides of the pitch like that.
Listen, if I could just jump in, listen, I'm far from a soccer guy, but from what I know from the teams is that the women's team was very good last season. I think they won 15 games. And we lost about 4, I believe. So they're starting off bad. They already have half of their losses. So that is not the way you want to start a season. And then I think the men's side, they were below 500 just about, and they started off pretty well. So obviously you want both teams to thrive. You want both teams to get a winning streak going. But you're seeing kind of the opposite happen with these teams right now compared to last season, and you just don't want that. So whether it be maybe they lost players because of graduation, because of COVID, whatever, we're seeing kind of a difference here. Again, only 1 or 2 games. Things can definitely change, and hopefully for the better for FAU.
Yeah, and like you said, things could hopefully change. For the women's team, they have another game February 11th at Florida Gulf Coast, and then February 19th at Florida. So 2 more tough games for the women's soccer team. The men's soccer team actually plays tomorrow, Tuesday, or when this game will probably be Tuesday. They'll have played Stetson at Boca Raton, FAU Soccer Stadium. Then on February 19th, they'll play Jacksonville University at Jacksonville. So there's enough time for FAU soccer teams, both men's and women's, to kind of turn around their seasons, try and get on pace. But, we're going to go into women's basketball because I've been trying to coin this phrase for the longest. I've told our women's soccer guy, not women's soccer, women's basketball guy, John DeStefano, he announces the women's games. I'm going to try and coin the phrase, getting Iggy with it, kind of like the Will Smith song, Getting Jiggy with it, because Iggy Allen is an absolute beast. So FAU women's basketball team played 2 games this past weekend against Western Kentucky. One of them was a loss, one of them was a win. In the loss against Western Kentucky, Iggy Allen had 35 points. Florida Atlantic lost 71-64. So Iggy Allen had 35 of 64 points. That's over half. And then the next time they played West Kentucky, FAU won 75-70. Iggy Allen, 19 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, basically filling up the stat sheet. So what have you guys seen from Iggy Allen specifically that, has kind of earned her that player of the week mantra and pretty much the focal point of an FAU women's basketball team?
If you don't mind, I'll start off real quick because obviously when I was kind of my end of days when it became being editor in chief, I was kind of catching up with women's basketball, talking with John about it. Iggy Allen was the go-to. She is a bucket in the making. And I hate to compare it to the NBA, but when you say she scored 31 points or 30 plus points in a loss, I'm like, man, that is it's rough. You see a lot about that in the NBA when you see I think Steph Curry went on for 50 plus and lost. You know what I'm saying? Or just stuff like that. It's a shame that the team is not performing that great to the point where we're not living up to Iggy Allen's kind of expectations. But it's just business as usual when it comes to Iggy Allen. She should get Conference Player of the Week every week if I'm being pretty honest. So, but she's also not really selfish with the ball from what I've seen. She's very she's the all around kind of player for FAU that they needed, but really now they need players around her to get better. And again, obviously that comes with recruiting, that comes with stuff like that. But from what I've seen from Iggy Allen has been spectacular. So. And
Richard, what have you seen from the women's basketball games, from the other people that aren't Iggy Allen that can lead this team or at least provide some help? Because in that first game they played where Iggy Allen scored 35, she was 14 for 23 from the field. The next highest, nobody else made over 3 shots. Rita Pleskovich went 1 of 15. Everybody else 2 for 7, 2 for 9, 2 for 6, 1 for 9. So what do you think of those others, that can help them win?
Shout out to Jewel, by the way. Go on, Richard.
So, one fact you forgot to mention about the first women's game against Western Kentucky is that outside of Iggy Allen, the team outside of Allen shot 20%. And while they did recover the next game to win that, this women's basketball team is pretty much the perfect comparison to the Washington Wizards last season when it was just Bradley Beal and some other guys.
Shoot, Washington Wizards this season.
Yeah, well,
it's every season.
At least the Wizards got Westbrook now. But yeah, it was basically the Wizards last season when it was just Bradley Beal and some other guys. That's basically Iggy Allen and the other players. But there are times like the previous game where they won that Rita Pleskovich, Ali Toka, Amber Gaston, Sophia Galarone, they can contribute. They really can. What matters is they need to be more consistent with scoring the ball and shooting it more efficiently, because you cannot go 20% as a team and then your star player Iggy Allen scores Bradley Beal type numbers.
What do you guys think about the future of this women's team as it concerns like where they're going throughout this season? Because we're going to be entering conference play, and from there, it's only going to get tougher. It's only going to get rougher. This team has to step up outside of Iggy Allen. And if they can't do that, where do you see their ceiling in terms of in Conference USA, Eston?
From what I've seen, I would hope it's not going to be an early exit, or, I don't see them going very far because of their over reliance on Iggy Allen. And this isn't to discredit the team, but Iggy Allen puts the team on her back every single night. And as you guys have said, the girls around her really have to step up their performance. And I just don't see it happening. I think, they'll be in the games, they'll keep up, but they're not going to be able to pull out close games because they haven't proven that they can be consistently good outside of Iggy Allen. So again, I personally don't see them going very far, but I hope I'm proven wrong.
By the way, shout out to Colby Guy who just joined us.
Editor-in-Chief Colby Guy making his first appearance on the sports podcast, but kind of transitioning from women's basketball to men's basketball. And this past week, another round of positive COVID tests away from FAU, which means another couple of games where FAU has not played basketball. I think we did a quick look before the podcast started. FAU hasn't played a basketball game since January 23rd. It is now February 8th, and we don't know if they're going to play again. So with everything that's been going on, Colby, not only within FAU, but within college sports as a whole, do you think it's smart to continue to play sports right now when it doesn't look like there's going to be an end in sight to this pandemic?
Honestly, there have been other leagues who've been able to pull it off. Look at the NHL and the NBA, who have been able to get their schedules going, reschedule when needed, and go from there. But I think when you're dealing with a bunch of college kids, especially, there isn't really a way to police these kids, and so there's always going to be some of them going out and partying or something. I've heard of that, and I've heard people talking. Even when I was covering a game once, I saw one of the players afterwards saying, "Oh, you want to go to U Park, go to a party or something." So I think that's something that's been happening, not just at FAU but other schools. So it's harder to kind of police where the players go with these student athletes and keep them from going to some super spreader events. So in that sense, I think it might not be a good idea to continue playing basketball. But I mean, if they're able to get the COVID protocols in place more and be able to get enough players to finish out the season, I think a lot of these guys do want to play, do want to prove themselves. But I feel like there's always going to be a problem on at least one side. So it just depends on how they're able to kind of get these players to play.
And like Eston said, the University of Miami canceled a couple of their games with North Carolina because of COVID protocols on North Carolina's team, who just played Duke a couple of days ago. The NCAA has said they're going to try and do March Madness. It's going to be in a bubble in Indianapolis. But Eston, Richard, Zach, is there any hope that we can make it to March Madness without having another outbreak at another school? Because I don't think any of you guys know this, but I've noticed, I guess, the quality of play hasn't kept up like we normally have seen with college basketball. I don't know if it's, the lack of a Zion Williamson at Duke last year with absolute star power. But even now, you can see like the Kentuckys, the Dukes, North Carolinas. None of those teams are in the top 25. Like this is a rare year where no blue blood is like truly good. And you have to wonder, is this because of the pandemic or is it because like these teams just don't have the guys? And do we even make it to March Madness?
Well,
I think like as far as like none of these teams really being good, I just don't think there's that like X factor prospect like there has been in the last couple of years. Like look at last year's draft where Anthony Edwards went first. LaMelo Ball was that X factor prospect guy, but he was playing in Australia. So and then there's a couple other guys who are going to be in the NBA draft next year who have decided to go to the G League. So I think it's just college basketball taking a hit by a bunch of different things. And there's not that like X factor prospect like a Zion Williamson or Ben Simmons before he got injured. Those are the two guys I was thinking that had huge buzz. But there isn't that guy that everyone's looking for who's going to be drafted first overall in the NBA. Like now, like I see a lot of teams like the Alabamas and Oklahomas being ranked rather than those like blue blood schools, and there isn't really that kind of like, top flight prospect.
Yeah, listen, I also want to hear what Esten and Richard have to say about it as well. But to me, the question lies for me when it comes to FAU is how many games are we going to postpone until we really should just not play games anymore? Because again, the amount of these games that FAU has missed is just pure playing time for the boys. I mean, listen, I think right now they're 8-7. Correct if I'm wrong there. And
You're right.
I mean, business as usual for FAU basketball. It seems like they just kind of go just above 500 and they call it a season. But it starts to get to the players and the coaches' confidence. Like, we're not playing games. What happens when we face an opponent that has played games? We're going to be at a major disadvantage. So for me, it's like, it's going to come to a point, hopefully not, but if it comes to the point where we cancel the games against, USM or UTSA or whatever, I mean, it's going to be like, the season's just a bust. It's a mulligan. What are we going to do? Are we going to have to do what they did with baseball and give these players who are on their senior years like another year, like of eligibility? It's like, again, it gets so complicated there. But I want to hear what Richard and Essen have to say about that as well.
And so far, I think we can say like FAU's record is 8-7-6 because they missed 6 games because of COVID concerns, not only at FAU but at other schools. So, like Zach said, Richard, Esten, what are you guys' thoughts on like how this pandemic has basically wiped out a good half of the opening part of FAU's season?
When it comes down to it, 6 games is a lot of games to miss. And we don't even know if those games are going to be rescheduled by Conference USA. We don't even know if they'll be scheduled like a week before the Conference USA tournament. Like if it was 1 week of basketball games being postponed, okay. But how are you going to schedule 3 weeks worth of 3 weekends worth of basketball games in 1 week before the conference tournament? So are they actually going to reschedule all of the postponed games for Conference USA? I don't really think so. Maybe 1 weekend, but I just don't really see chances of them rescheduling every game for Conference USA very likely. And FAU will have to finish its season with less games than originally intended.
Personally, my biggest concern when it comes to all the missed games and hopefully the upcoming games, if they do play, is the soft tissue injuries, and particularly with someone like Jalen Ingram, who has struggled with injuries in the past. And, when you don't play for, at this point, about a month, there's a difference between the intensity that they're bringing in practice and then the intensity that they're bringing into the game. So and as you guys have mentioned, I can't imagine how their confidence, like their overall morale, how it's been, we don't know how they're doing and how they're like mentally being affected by all this. But my biggest concern is, again, the injuries that could happen out of this. I mean, to imagine if they go into this next upcoming series and Jalen Ingram gets hurt again, and all of a sudden he's out for the rest of the season. I think if someone gets hurt and it's a major injury, and I'm talking specifically about FAU here, obviously, then I would definitely have to consider canceling the rest of the games, because you're putting the players at a further risk, not only by playing, but you're pushing them. They can't mentally prepare in the same way they usually do. So,
And I think one of you guys said it. Like Essence said, I definitely agree with the soft tissue injuries. But I think the biggest thing that we've seen, and not only at FAU but college basketball as a whole, is that lack of playing time. Speaking about FAU specifically, most of this team is freshmen and sophomores. Not being on the court playing, that takes away a lot of playing time. That takes away your ability to gel together as a team. That's why we've seen those blue bloods like Kentucky, like Duke, like North Carolina. While they've recruited well and still recruited those 5-star guys, at the end of the day, it's basketball. You still have to work together as a team. In order to work together as a team, you have to play together. That's why we see the Gonzagas, the Oklahomas, the Oklahoma States even. The teams led by senior and junior talent who have been there before, have already known the playbook. They're the ones that are in the top 10. They're the ones that are leading the college basketball world. But unfortunately, that's just the thing that the pandemic has taken away. It's taken away playing time from those freshmen, from those sophomores, from those guys that haven't necessarily gotten a lot of playing time. And it's affecting FAU a lot, because those are the guys that you need to step up immediately. Even right now, with FAU being 8-7, those freshmen have had to step up in each of those games. Like Brian Greenlee, I know he's a sophomore. Keenan Blackshear has stepped up huge in some games. But unfortunately, it's been a thing that the pandemic has taken away. And we're a month out from March, and FAU's only played 15 games. That college basketball as a whole has had multiple games canceled, not only for small schools, but for big schools. And I think we're going to see a March Madness tournament. But what it's going to take to get there, that trade-off, I don't know if it's going to be worth it in the end. But, I guess we'll kind of segue away from that to, I don't know if you guys heard, but there was a big football game this weekend. I don't know if
really?
I know it's crazy. Right? Honestly, I didn't realize the Super Bowl was happening until like Wednesday. And I was like, oh yeah, that's a thing. But the Super Bowl did happen on Sunday, and it went just about how nobody expected. The Buccaneers beat the Kansas City Chiefs 31-9 to win their second Super Bowl in franchise history, their first since 2003. Tom Brady wins his 7th Super Bowl ring and won Super Bowl MVP as well. First off, guys, what are your overall thoughts on the game? I'll start with Zach.
Well, first off, I do want to say all 5 of us did share our predictions. All 5 of us did. And the person who predicted the score the closest was Eston. So everyone just give Eston a...
No, hold on. Now, hold on. I don't give props for that, because although he said the Buccaneers are going to get 31 points or something, nobody predicted 31-9. Nobody predicted the Chiefs not scoring a touchdown. That's one of the biggest things that kind of shocked everybody. So, Zach, what do you take from the Chiefs, that offensive powerhouse, not scoring a single touchdown the whole game?
Well, for me anyways, Tom Brady is not the Super Bowl MVP. And it's Todd Bowles. It's Todd Bowles, because the Chiefs, I mean, listen, you could talk about the offense all the way you want. That is one of the best offenses that anyone has ever seen play football. Absolutely. It starts with the quarterback. It starts with Patrick Mahomes. 25 years old, and the guy is already he's the best player in the league. It's like him and Aaron Donald, but really it's Mahomes for me. So stopping that team who can adapt to any defense, not scoring a touchdown, but only 3 field goals, 9 points, that's absolutely amazing. And again, I'm not going to be like, former sports editor Justin Jennings when it comes to Tom Brady and his hate towards him. But here's the thing with that is that you listen, Tom Brady, the last 2 Super Bowls that he has won, it was led by an amazing defensive performance. Brian Flores, current coach of the Miami Dolphins, holding that LA Rams team, which is hot on offense, to 3 points. And they have Todd Bowles on the Buccaneers doing that. And again, I said this on Twitter, is that this game shows the importance of an offensive line. And absolutely, because again, JPP, Shaquille Barrett, Ndamukong Suh, Vita Vea, they feasted on backups and an injured offensive line. Mitchell Schwartz was already gone for the year. Eric Fisher was out in this game, and it really showed. Well, what was the stat? Patrick Mahomes ran 497 yards because he was running for his life every single play. And guess what happened? He was still again the best photograph taken from that Super Bowl is him when he's like throwing a dart while not even on 2 feet. He's in
like
the
parallel
air.
to the ground. He's like this.
And guess what? It hits the guy's face mask. And that's the thing, too. There's a lot of drops in this game. Again, I can't catch those because I'm not an NFL wide receiver. But a guy like Tyreek Hill, which it seemed like an easy catch for him at one of those plays, it's amazing. Mahomes, I hate to say it, even though they only scored 9 points, Mahomes continued to show why he's amazing. I hate to say it. But again, he looked very vulnerable, only scoring 9 points. So again, that was my only takeaway, and I want to hear everybody's thoughts here on it as well. But that was my only takeaway, was that Todd Bowles played pretty much a perfect game you can against the Chiefs. They only scored 9 points. So, but again,
Well, Zach, I'm just gonna preface what I'm saying with this. I think I could catch those passes. I think.
Okay. Hold on. This is being recorded. I want everybody listening to get that down right now. If you got a pencil, got your notes app out, write it down. Colby
Can
Guy,
you repeat that for me?
Colby Guy, editor-in-chief, said he could catch an NFL pass coming at him at like 30 miles an hour in between 2 defenders. You know what? Let's test it.
I'm going to call the cap on that.
All right.
We're gonna go.
All right. Let's test that out.
Hold on. We're gonna go get an NFL quarterback. I'm gonna go.
Let's get Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, let's get Patrick Mahomes. We're gonna bring him down to Boca, and we're gonna let him throw passes with Colby. I want him to throw it as hard as he can, and we'll see if Colby can catch it in between 2 defenders. This is gonna be
with or without gloves though for him.
No gloves. You don't get to cheat.
Who are the 2 defenders?
We'll find out when we get there, but just know we're gonna do it. So you better.
Okay, all right. Can I share my thoughts on the Super Bowl now?
Your thoughts on the game.
Okay, so I think Zach made some pretty good points with that Bucs defense really hammering in on Mahomes. He had no time to operate, and I'm going to give a lot of credit to that pass rush with Jason Pierre-Paul and also the play of Devin White. And Carlton Davis had a pretty good game too, shutting down Tyreek Hill. But very, very good game by that Buccaneers defense. And Gronkowski had a good game too. He got 2 touchdowns. Brady did his thing, as he's always going to do in big games like this. But I think a lot of the blame here has to go to the game planning on Andy Reid's part as well. Because there's a lot of creative things he could have done, like run some RPO type plays, like as he usually did, or have those jet sweep plays where Tyreek Hill beats the guys on the outside and uses his speed. But I didn't see any of that during the Super Bowl. I don't know about you guys, but I didn't see any of those creative play calls like they had been throughout the season. I think they were just trying to force some passes, and the offensive line kind of let Mahomes out there to die. But if they would have done those quick run plays and get the ball out of Mahomes' hand quicker, I feel like they could have had a better chance of scoring some points.
Well, I think the thing is about those quick screens and the RPOs and the jet sweeps, they tried to run screens. That's the first thing that they did because they knew they had a bad offensive line. And the best thing you can do with a bad offensive line is do screens. Get that aggressive Bucs defense to come forward and then throw it right behind them as soon as they get past you. But they couldn't do that because Tampa Bay, one of the biggest things about Tampa Bay's defense, I saw in the Super Bowl, I saw it all season, they're extremely fast at every level of the ball. Like Levante David and Devin White are 2 of the fastest linebackers in the NFL. You can't run east to west on them. So you can try to run those jet sweeps. They'll track you down to 2 yards. You can try to run screens. They're quick to diagnose it. So this wasn't as much, I don't think, game planning. We say, Andy Reid or Eric Bieniemy should have called a better game plan. As much as it was, everybody got a plan until you get punched in the mouth. And Kansas City got punched in the mouth over and over and over and over and over until at one point it was 31-9. So this was more Tampa Bay won this game. They were the most complete team for 4 quarters. and they showed it throughout the game. But Eston, Richard, I want to get you guys' thoughts on the game, what you saw.
First off, if the receivers for Kansas City eliminated half of those drops, I still don't think they would have won, but I think it would have made it a much closer game. I mean, Mahomes really did all you could have asked for out of him, not to mention he wasn't 100%. I mean, I think he was dealing with a turf toe, which, you know, say what you want, it's a turf toe, but still, he was visibly limping on the field. Not to mention, he took that massive hit from JPP, Ndamukong Suh, and some other, I forget who else it was, but I mean, he was getting crushed all game. So I think Mahomes did everything he could, but for the Bucs, what more is there to say? Gronk looked like, I think Gronk aged less. I think he looked like he was 28.
You know what?
He had a vintage performance.
You know what's crazy? Gronk and Travis Kelce are the same age.
That's
Yeah.
unbelievable. I saw that tweet stat. I had to double check for my own. That's insane.
Gronk came in the league 4 years earlier, but him and Travis Kelce are the same age. That's insane to think about. Gronk is like past his prime, and we're just like, man, he's the same age as Travis Kelce. But Richard, what did you think of?
I mean, that's just a testament to how much like damage has been on his body, how many hits he's taken in the NFL, and also just kind of looking at the NFL game compared to college football. I think I'm sorry, Richard, for cutting you off there, but like that's just a point to look at where like some of these guys, like their primes are that short because of the amount of hits they're taking.
But yeah, Richard, what did you think of the game overall for Tampa Bay? You chose Tampa to win. What was your biggest takeaway from how they played?
The biggest takeaway is that I'm glad that I picked the X factor that happened to be right. Which was the Bucs defense. What I didn't expect was how many points they would allow, and they only conceded 9 points to the Chiefs, which is incredible. Like they exceeded my expectations on how they would defend Patrick Mahomes and the receivers and the running plays that they would put out. They just had the best defensive game you could ever ask for against a top offense like the Chiefs. And the Bucs offense played well for the most part. Congrats to Tom Brady, Rob Gronkowski, Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown, Leonard Fournette.
Mike Evans.
Great. Oh yeah, and not to mention Ryan Jensen.
Shout out to Ryan Jensen. Shout out to that Buccaneers offensive line. That's the one thing I was going to bring up. They were the unsung heroes for Tampa Bay all year. They kept Brady exceptionally clean. Tristan Wirfs, the right tackle, who was a rookie, played like an all-pro. Should have won Rookie of the Year if we were being honest, but Rookie of the Year is a quarterback award. We all knew that. Ali Marpet, the left guard, one of the best left guards in the game. Ryan Jensen, one of the best centers in the game. They absolutely negated all blitzes from Kansas City. Steve Spagnuolo loves the blitz. He couldn't do any of that because the protection was so good. And, we talk about Gronk. Gronk is essentially a sixth offensive lineman with the way he blocks. He blocked exceptionally well. So this was a complete team victory by Tampa Bay. But, of course, we had the next day kind of reactions. Richard, go ahead.
There's one more thing I like to mention. I do feel bad for Patrick Mahomes because he had to keep running away from the Buccaneers defense like that streaker was running from security at the end of the game.
They had Mahomes out there looking like Cam Newton in Super Bowl 50. And, the thing's going to be, now they have the blueprint to beat Mahomes and the Chiefs. And I guess the blueprint is make sure all four starting five Chiefs offensive linemen are injured. So that means you got to take them out. Sniper rifle, take out their knees, get them excommunicated.
Bite a kneecap off, according to Dan Campbell,
bite kneecaps off.
I got a couple things to mention.
I guess we're going to see the Lions in the Super Bowl someday, then.
I got a couple things to mention if it's okay.
That's fine.
The couple things that I wanted to mention, by the way, is because Colby did mention Carlton Davis, and when I was at Radio Row, I had to ask him what's the mentality going into the game, and he pretty much said you don't want to have, even though it's the Chiefs, you don't want to stress it out. Again, because you're just gonna put more nerves. Carlton Davis, according to PFF, he allowed over 200 yards the last time they met against Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill had a crazy game that game, if you remember. and they can shut them down. Also, it seems like there is an elephant in the room that's not being talked about. Okay, because I mean, can anybody answer me? What was one of the major things in that first half that was very odd?
Tyrann Mathieu trying to talk smack to Brady.
No, are we talking about the penalties?
The flags.
Yeah, the flags. There were so many terrible flags by that Chiefs secondary. There's so many holding penalties, and they're on these really, really bad times where they think they have them stopped, and then there's also that interception that got brought back because of a holding penalty. So there are so many defensive holding penalties on that Chiefs secondary that it was insane. They took way too many penalties. I saw a stat, and they had the most first half penalties in a Super Bowl of all time.
So let me comment on that real quick, because here's the thing, right? Obviously the one phrase that was trending on Twitter, which is "let them play," right? Because again, and what I asked for officiating is consistency on both sides. We didn't see that. The same thing in the Packers game, we didn't see that. And I'm not going to bring up conspiracy theory it's rigged for Brady. I really don't think it is. However, they're really not helping themselves, okay? Because it's just kind of where a lot of those calls favor Tampa Bay. Listen, I'm not saying that every call was just was not good, because again, there's some calls that they should have been called, and they were very undisciplinary in that first half. But it was just the officiating made their mark on a big football game again, and it was just sad to see. And that's why, to me, I wasn't surprised, because usually that just happens. But again, I'm not going to say that just overshadows what the defense did by allowing only 9 points. Obviously not, but I thought it was important to bring that up.
It was a completely different game, officiating wise, second half. It feels like they read all the tweets the first half, and they're just okay, we'll just let them play now that Kansas City's down 20. But you are correct. There were definitely a bunch of flags there. I was one of those people who said, just let them play. It's the Super Bowl. It's going to be physicality. Some of those holding calls, I was really? That's holding? And, some of the unsportsmanlike, there are some flags where the Chiefs were yeah, that should have been a flag. You can't do that. The unsportsmanlike conduct, yeah, you can't do that. The extra stuff after the play, you can't do that, because it's the Super Bowl. You got to keep your head on straight. But the holding calls, it just felt like a very different game called second half rather than the first half. But, there's definitely that whole thing. The day after the Super Bowl, Brady wins his 7th ring, and the conversation comes up. Not only do they ask, is Tom Brady the greatest football player ever, but they bring up, is Brady the best athlete ever? So I want to ask you guys, I'm going to start with Eston. Is Tom Brady the greatest athlete of all time? And if
I'm going to
name who you think it is.
I'm going to take the cap off for this one, because I don't think this is a no cap alert. I'm going to argue that he is the greatest individual athlete of all time, considering that no one in the NFL has the effect individually that Tom Brady has had for a team. And at the same time, I still 7 Super Bowls, and now he proved that he not only he's not a system quarterback with Bill Belichick, who by the way, may I say he's overrated a little bit.
What? I hate to interrupt. Tom, Bill Belichick overrated? Well,
you want me to bring the cap out?
No, I got my cap.
Let us finish.
Continue.
So, and when you look at other NFL players who have individually made a great impact on their team, the person I'm thinking of immediately is Joe Montana when he left from San Francisco to go to Kansas City. I don't think we've ever seen someone of that stat. Or instead of Joe Montana, Peyton Manning, for example. Yes, he was able to prove that he wasn't, just a system quarterback in Indianapolis, and he went to a different team and did it. But he only has 2 rings. And I would say out of any major professional sport that's team based, all right, I just can't see how anyone can compare to him, because the man has a higher chance to make it to the Super Bowl than Steph Curry does to make a 3-pointer. He probably has a better chance of making the Super Bowl than I have of actually going to school past my graduation in a couple years. So, like, the man is insane. And I should probably have brought stats out for this to
Hey, no problem.
my
No
argument
problem,
a bit
no problem.
better.
Zach, you were one of the people who physically we could see what your reaction was. But if you don't think that Tom Brady is the greatest athlete of all time, give your reason why, and also say who you think is the greatest athlete of all time.
So I'm glad that Eston later clarified his statement, right? When you talk about team sports, it's hard to argue against Brady. He's won 7, but he's been to 10 Super Bowls. You know, that's this much. Okay, so it's
3 decades.
and it's accomplished. But here's the thing about the team sports, right? Is that football, it relies on way more than a quarterback to let alone make it to a Super Bowl. And I feel like that again, Brady has been a part of obviously Tampa Bay, who had a great team around it. But obviously, listen, like, and you talk about Bill Belichick being overrated. I don't think so. Like, people say, oh, but who's better? Was it Belichick or Brady? I just think it was just the perfect match. You know, the Patriots, people get mad at me when I talk about, oh, but Brady's not the greatest. But then I'm saying, like, listen, like, the Patriots are the best dynasty in football, period. They were, I should say. They were, because they crafted an amazing team around Brady when they went to the Super Bowls and they won it. You know, they didn't have to rely on Brady sometimes. They relied on Adam Vinatieri's leg and then a defense in the last Super Bowl against the Rams. So, but again, I'm not saying that Brady had nothing to do with it, obviously. So to answer the point of what I think is the greatest athlete, period. Obviously, athletic ability, that's a huge thing, and how much they dominated their sport. When I look at that, Tom Brady is not there. I think of a Serena Williams. I think of Usain Bolt, Muhammad Ali. You know, I think of those type of guys. Some, you know, it's Michael Phelps. You know, again, so team sports. It's an important clarification. You know, when it comes to that. So obviously he's there. I mean, listen, obviously with best athletes, I put LeBron, Michael Jordan, whatever. But it's not a crazy statement that he says. I mean, it's not like it's not a hot take to say that Tom Brady is the greatest athlete. You know, but I have others above him.
And when you look at the influence that he has on every team that he goes to, I mean, I've heard people say that, oh, you know, look at the roster around Brady. It's no wonder he won the Super Bowl. Well, okay, a lot of those players weren't with Tampa Bay before the season even started. Like, I'm thinking AB and Leonard Fournette, for example. And those are 2 key contributors to the team throughout the season and yesterday. I don't think they would have come to the team if it wasn't for Brady. I think the Brady effect isn't something. It's something that reaches far beyond the field. I mean, the Buccaneers they had the lowest winning percentage of out of all the 4 major professional sports in the U.S. They had the lowest winning percentage of any franchise before Brady came in. And meanwhile, Brady had the highest winning percentage individually amongst all the 4 major sports. Now, when you look at it, he's completely changed the culture and the whole dynamic of that organization. So again, I rest my case. I think he's definitely the best team, like, individual athlete in a team-based sport. I'm going to say that because, Zach, I'm glad you made the distinction between him and, like, Olympian athletes or, you know, Williams, so tennis players, because there is a big distinction there, and that's a whole other conversation. So,
Colby, where do you stand on this Tom Brady greatest athlete conversation? Where do you think it is? He one, and if he isn't, then who do you say is the greatest athlete of all time?
Honestly, like, Tom Brady is the greatest football player of all time. That's not a question. But as far as, like, athlete in a team-based sport, I don't think anyone has, like, statistically dominated a sport more than Wayne Gretzky ever had. Like,
Thank you for mentioning.
He holds like every single record in NHL history. And there's just been a laundry list of insane players who have been in the league since him that have not even been close to touching what he's been able to do. And he played in an era where scoring wasn't as prevalent, although goaltending was not as great either. So it evened out. But, like, Gretzky, wherever he went, he turned his team into an instant contender. Like, he won, like, several rings in Edmonton and just completely changed the culture of the NHL as soon as he came in. Like one of Gretzky's first years in the NHL, he went toe to toe with the New York Islanders team that won 4 straight Stanley Cups. He lost the first time he met up with them in his first of the Stanley Cup Finals, but then the next year he had his rematch with that Islander team that was in its fifth straight Stanley Cup Finals appearance. He absolutely dominated in that series, and then started an old little Oilers dynasty right after that. But the dude holds like every single record in hockey, and there's just not any other player in any other sport that has that type of statistical resume. I mean, you got Brady and Jordan with the amount of championships they have, but Gretzky's up there in championships, and it's hockey's a harder sport to get multiple championships in a row because it's how physically demanding it is. But Gretzky was able to have a long career and get so many. He has like single season records, career records. He is the greatest athlete the world's ever seen.
So I saw this crazy Wayne Gretzky stat that kind of like backs up what Kobe's saying, and I'll talk about who I think is later. But I saw a stat where if you did total points scored and points assisted in NHL history, number 1 would be Wayne Gretzky points. Number 2 would be Wayne Gretzky assists. That's insane. You can take away all the points that he scored and he'd still be top 2 in total points in a career. You can't replicate that kind of dominance. But Richard, where do you stand on this Tom Brady greatest athlete discussion?
A Patriots fan, by the way, but
noted Patriots fan, Richard. Let's get that out there.
Keep going.
In the realm of football, I'd agree he is the greatest. Is he one of the most accomplished athletes ever? Yes. But is he the best athlete ever? I'm not inclined to think that way. I think there are a few more players that would be better than Tom Brady as the best athlete ever in history. As Zach mentioned, Serena Williams, Usain Bolt, Muhammad Ali. I feel more inclined to put Jordan and LeBron above Brady. And to top it off, we're being too generous when we call Brady an athlete. We get his athletic ability.
Anyone seen that combine picture? I don't think we say.
Oh yeah, and Pele. Yeah.
Pele. That's another one too. Actually, that's actually good. That's a good shout. But hey, listen, Richard said it, not me, about Tom Brady not being that good of an athlete. Okay.
So
the best in football, but not the best ever.
And here's where I stand with Tom Brady. I don't think Tom Brady was ever had the strongest arm. I don't think he was ever the most accurate. I don't think he was ever the best on his feet in terms of scrambling and running with the ball. You could argue he was the best at pocket presence in terms of moving within the pocket. But what Tom Brady was the best at, and I think Essen alluded to it, was winning. He had that winning mentality. Wherever he went, he was going to bring that competitiveness with him.
That 28-3 comeback against Atlanta proved it.
Yeah, that's going to rub a lot of Atlanta fans sore, but we had to mention it. But I guess I'll say Tom Brady is the greatest football player of all time. Greatest athlete, bar none, is Serena Williams. And I have a perfect explanation why. Who was Tom Brady's biggest rival in his career? Anybody? Peyton Manning.
Yeah.
How many times did Peyton Manning beat Tom Brady? How many times?
Mm-hmm.
What, a couple times?
Couple times.
You're gonna guess 3.
We're gonna guess 3. Let's split this up. We're gonna
Tom
do
Brady, Manning 1-on-1.
So real quick, I just want to say, because when people say that Brady is the greatest football player ever, I can't really argue, but obviously you're saying that he's better than guys like Lawrence Taylor, Jim Brown, okay? Because to me, Jim Brown, maybe call me biased because of Brady, but Jim Brown was just unstoppable. And the fact that he had to retire early, just it's amazing. But yeah, you can't really doubt what Brady has done.
So Brady is 11-6 against Peyton Manning. All right. Okay. Who is Serena Williams' greatest rival?
No idea.
Maria Sharapova.
Sharapovich.
Okay.
Yeah, Sharapova. Serena Williams is 25-2 against Maria Sharapova.
Is that even a rival?
That ain't a
That's
rivalry.
tough.
That ain't no rivalry. That is a beatdown. You know who made up that rivalry? Tennis.
It's like FAU, FIU.
Tennis media. Yes. That's
Yeah.
media made up. Tennis media made Maria Sharapova lose 25 times Serena. You know I know why? Because they made her to be Serena's rival. And Serena's like, I ain't having that. So I'm going to beat you down every time. Okay, but we don't go Serena. Or we don't go Sharapova. Venus Williams. Serena's 19-10 against Venus Williams. You can't, there is no rival for us to say, like, Serena had trouble against this person. She is in her own league. She's like, I think she's third in total Grand Slams, second in singles. And again, she won an Australian Open while pregnant. I don't, that's insane.
Does the kid also get the victory for that then?
I don't know. We'll have to check the record books. But
Definitely serves as motivation.
I think there is a distinction that we need to make between individual and team. Because individual, I give individual like sports a whole lot more weight to being the greatest athlete than team. Because a team person can play real bad and that team can still win. You know, we say it a lot with Brady. We mentioned it earlier. Brady didn't have a great game against LA in the Super Bowl. They won that Super Bowl. Julian Edelman won that MVP. You can't have a bad day as an individual athlete, or you're going to lose. You're not going to blame it on anybody else. Like, if Usain Bolt has a bad day and loses, you don't blame it on anybody else. You blame it on Usain Bolt. Thing is, Usain Bolt doesn't lose. So he's also among the greatest athletes of all time. Simone Biles, arguably the greatest gymnast of all time. Pele. If we go into combat sports, John Jones is still undefeated. That's like still a thing. He might be the greatest fighter ever. He's arguably the greatest athlete ever. But in terms of total, in all, greatest athlete ever, there are a bunch of people I put before Brady. But Serena Williams is a tier above everybody else. Like, it goes Serena, then it'll maybe go like Simone Biles and Usain Bolt, then like Tiger Woods,
Muhammad Ali.
then like Tyson Ali, and
Lionel Messi.
Messi. But maybe you go with the team sports guys, and you can sort out the guys in team sports. But when you talk about the greatest athlete of all time, your list got to start and end with Serena, because, dude, like I said, her greatest rival, I guess, is Maria Sharapova.
Well,
She went
listen.
25-2.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, when it comes to like a good rivalry, they kind of go back and forth with each other. Okay. Sharapova only won twice out of
That's the
27
thing.
contests.
That's why I say, like,
That's
she
not a
has no competition because she is that much better than everybody else.
Well, that's it. Because I mean, that's the thing for me that I feel like that's a really good way of declaring of kind of like the greatest athletes. Because when you look at Muhammad Ali, obviously the big rival was him and Joe Frazier. Had 3 fights. He won 2 and Joe won 1. But that's it. That's a bigger. What about LeBron? What about all these other guys? Michael Jordan. Again, like, they just dominated.
I mean,
So.
you go Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson had no rival.
Well, in his peak,
everybody out.
like literally in Mike Tyson's prime, he's scary.
He
You can't
knocked
beat him.
everybody out.
Floyd Mayweather.
Ooh, Floyd is a good one. Because I feel like people don't give Floyd enough credit.
Because they be dodging all the time.
Because he's an ass.
Like, if I'm a boxer, I'm not going to stand in there and try and get hit.
Well, here's the thing, right? Because again, I think athletic ability plays a huge part when it comes to being an athlete, right? So when you look at a guy like LeBron, okay, how he continues to prove why he's the best athlete right now. It's because of how old he is. It's kind of like with Brady, but again with basketball, he's still
aging like fine wine.
Best player in basketball. I mean, to me, he is. I don't care if you say Giannis or you throw anybody else. I mean, it's LeBron James. Okay, so, but with Brady, let's be honest here. I mean, he's had a good season. Obviously, he's not the best quarterback in the league. So, and he didn't allow Like he did not allow the Chiefs to score 9 points. He didn't do that.
That was the defense.
But there are arguments like, I guess, and you can do this with all team sports. But the thing about football, when you put somebody in football in the greatest athlete of all time, you have to take into account that they don't play both sides of the ball.
That's the thing. That's why there's so many Brady haters like Jensen Jennings.
But,
So that he's been led to these Super Bowls. To me, I could see that point of view. However, you still can't deny what Brady has done in the league, and you cannot deny the stats because Brady is a great quarterback. He's one of the best. But when you look at a skilled quarterback, let's be honest here. Is he the most skilled quarterback in the history of NFL? He's definitely not. When it comes to football IQ, the winning mentality, he's up there. But I look at a guy like Aaron Rodgers, and I hate to be biased. I look at a guy like Dan Marino and what he's done.
Okay, this might be a little hyperbolic, but if we're talking about most skilled, and I know this kind of changed the conversation, most skilled quarterback.
Mahomes is there.
I go Patrick Mahomes.
He's there.
He's right there. He's got to be right there in terms of athletic ability, and the throws he makes are insane. I mean, if you want to talk about like most talented, most skilled quarterbacks of all time, you got to have Mahomes up there. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers, Marino, Cam Newton, who pretty much changed the way modern football was played. Michael Vick, in terms of talent, but like you said, winners. Tom Brady is the best winner in football.
Absolutely.
He's one of the best winning athletes. But is he the best athlete of all time? No. We can stop that right there. I don't know if you.
I'm surprised that no one's mentioned this. No, I don't think anyone's mentioned Michael Jordan's name.
We did.
No, we did. We
mentioned him while you were in the bathroom, but even with Michael Jordan, we talk about like winning, how much winning means to being the greatest athlete of all time. Bill Russell got 11 of them trophies as a player and a coach.
Especially in a difficult era for Bill Russell.
Well, speaking of that, like old-time basketball, because my dad made a list of his own, and he put an interesting name in. He put Wilt Chamberlain in his list because, Wilt Chamberlain, his stats are disgusting. They are.
There's nobody over it.
It's kind of like the Gretzky comparison, where like literally
Wilt Chamberlain
every story
power, and everybody else was shorter.
Is Wilt Chamberlain. They had to change the rules so Wilt Chamberlain didn't have it easy. They made the rim high. Raised the rim.
And everybody else was 6'9" and under.
So let me ask you guys another question, because I saw this. This is on my dad's list, and I had to fight with him about that. But these are other people's lists as well. They put, and I don't know how much time we have left on here, but I just want to bring up one more name here. When talking about Babe Ruth, okay? Because here's the thing about Babe Ruth, right? Is that at the time, the guy was amazing. However, when you look back at it, the guy's diet was tobacco and hot dogs. So
he was fat.
We talk about athletic ability. I would not put Babe Ruth there, even though the guy hit over 700 home runs with ease. That's just.
I'm just saying.
Cigarettes don't
be in the conversation too.
Who? Babe Ruth played at a time no black people were allowed in the league. So like,
that's Jackie Robinson.
Then Josh Gibson
comes with because Hank Aaron broke his record.
One more question. I'm sorry to interrupt. If he didn't do the steroid thing, I think Barry Bonds would be up there.
Even before the steroids, Barry Bonds was amazing.
But for him, like the steroids, you can't.
Oh, absolutely. That's why. If it wasn't for the steroids,
Now I have a question when it comes to baseball, and I don't know how you guys will respond to this one, but in terms of greatest athlete, the baseball name that I've seen there was Derek Jeter. I've seen Jeter in the greatest athlete because I guess the argument was not only did he win, he also was a pretty good athlete.
Can't deny it. But when it comes to like stats, when you look at because obviously baseball, like out of all the sports out there, like stats are in baseball, it's huge, right? So with Derek Jeter, he definitely had that winning mentality. He had that, and he was a leader. But when you look at guys, the stats plays huge. Again, we mentioned a couple players. You look at Mike Trout now. Mike Trout has dominated baseball. He's the best player every single year. Obviously, like a guy like Fernando Tatis looks great and he could dominate, but Mike Trout, I mean, he's not up to athletes yet because, again, sadly, baseball is also that team sport where like you need people around you to win. He doesn't pitch the ball. He can't throw 100 miles per hour. He can't throw a fastball, so it's hard.
Unless playing the NL and a pitcher has to hit an NL.
Now, from a pitcher standpoint, and there is a bit of a bias here personally, I can't say that he was the best of all time because he passed early, but Jose Fernandez at one point was on track to be arguably not only the best player in Marlins history, but one of the best pitchers of all time. And not to mention, he could hit the ball pretty well too. I mean, I'm thinking back to when he hit that home run against the Braves and Brian McCann got pretty pissed at him because he stared the ball down. That was one of the best moments I've ever seen. But like, I'm also thinking with other baseball players, Josh Gibson, the Negro Leagues catcher, who I think he hit over 800 home runs.
Yeah.
In his career. If I don't know if that league is recognized the same way as Major League Baseball is. Personally, I think it should be because, when you look at the time, African Americans weren't, considered to be at the same level as white people. Clearly, they were wrong. Anyways, Josh Gibson, I think, should also be in that conversation, not just for best baseball player of all time, but, best individual athlete in the team sport.
And, this will be the last thing that kind of say, and then we'll move on to the final thing that we had scheduled for today. But if we talk about baseball, I think one of the guys we have to mention is Randy Johnson. In terms of pitchers and pitching, he was arguably the best in the world for a long time.
He killed a bird with one of his pitches.
He killed a bird with a pitch. That's unreal.
Oh.
But, this greatest athlete of all time, we could potentially have a whole nother podcast devoted to that.
Yeah, move on.
We'll move
Yeah,
on.
we could go on for hours.
The final thing, we're going to go over to the NBA. And the NBA recently released their first fan returns from NBA All-Star voting. I'm going to read them off for you guys, and let me know what you guys think. In the Western Conference front court, leading the NBA in general, and leading also the Western Conference front court is LeBron James. So the top 10 goes LeBron James, Nikola Jokic, Kawhi Leonard, Anthony Davis, Paul George, Zion Williamson, Andrew Wiggins, Christian Wood, Brandon Ingram, and Carmelo Anthony in the front court for the Western Conference.
Andrew Wiggins?
Hold on, let me finish. Western Conference guards. Steph Curry leads all Western Conference guards in voting, followed by Luka Doncic, then Damian Lillard, John Morant, Donovan Mitchell, Devin Booker, Chris Paul, CJ McCollum, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and Klay Thompson. So those are the Western Conference guys in terms of all-star fan returns, fan voting. We'll start off with Richard. What do you think of that first return?
Well, I'm not surprised that people voted Klay Thompson to be in the top 10. That's not a surprise. Even though he's out for the rest of the season, of course, people will vote him in just because. Same with Melo.
They make all the plays.
Hold up a second.
All the no-look assists.
Nope.
I'm gonna be able to edit that out, bro.
I'm sorry.
Continue.
But yeah, Melo's on the list. And then in the East, you got Derrick Rose. I do want to see Derrick Rose playing an all-star game again. And since he's back in New York, maybe he might get the chance. Who knows?
Well,
it's not a surprise. Like the leaders are what I expected. The bottom, of course.
I mean, no one expected LeBron James to have the most votes in the West. Come on.
Well, Richard mentioned the East, and I'll give you the East numbers so far. In the Eastern Conference front court, we have Kevin Durant, who leads all Eastern Conference players with over 2 million votes. Then number 2 is Giannis Antetokounmpo. Then we have Joel Embiid, Jason Tatum, Jimmy Butler, and Bam Adebayo are 5 and 6. Domantas Sabonis, Julius Randle, Gordon Hayward, and Jeremy Grant round out the top 10 for the Eastern Conference front court. For the guards, number 1 is Bradley Beal, then Kyrie Irving, James Harden, Jaylen Brown, Zach LaVine, Trae Young, Colin Sexton, Derrick Rose, Russell Westbrook, and Ben Simmons round out your top 10 for the guard. So now
All right. As the
Kyrie
president,
probably won't even show up.
I just want to say you announced Giannis's name beautifully.
thank you. I've been working on that since he came into the league. I'm gonna say Antetokounmpo perfectly every time I get the chance, just to flex it. But we'll go over to Zach, resident Heat fan, as you can see. What do you think about Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo being that All-Star voting and their placing so far?
How did you know I was a Heat fan?
I don't know. Just a hunch.
Okay, just making sure. No, I mean, listen, I think it's business as usual. Even though obviously Jimmy Butler had to miss a lot of games because of COVID issues and stuff like that. And the Heat have been kind of in a slump. We know this. But I mean, the Heat need Jimmy Butler, and Bam has been playing beautifully. We've known this from Bam, so I'm glad that hopefully they're on their way to both of those guys having their second straight All-Star appearance. Hopefully. So that's good with me. And there's really no other Heat player that I think really deserves a spot in the All-Star game, personally, in my opinion, because those guys are like the whole, the soul of that team, especially Jimmy, obviously. But Bam is huge when it comes to passing, when it comes to scoring. And again, we've seen he's. And the funny thing is, in my opinion, he's not even at his peak yet. The guy, we see his kind of evolvedness, offensively. He's shooting mid-range. He's getting in the post more, and I'm liking that very much. So I think those two are deserving. But obviously Jimmy has missed a lot of games, so the fact that the fans kind of gave him the benefit of the doubt is pretty cool too.
I give my reflections on the fan returns from the first round of voting. I think the biggest thing that stands out to me is Brandon Ingram being 9th in Western Conference front court, behind Andrew Wiggins.
Can I ask a question? Is there a meme I'm saying about Andrew Wiggins, or
Andrew Wiggins is the worst player or the best player in the history of basketball?
Is he doing?
He's high tier mid.
Is he doing good? Is he deserving of being in that?
He's not doing that bad.
He isn't.
This is one of his best years. I think he's top 10 in the NBA in blocks, which is shocking considering he's a small forward. But when you think about Brandon Ingram and what he's done for New Orleans, him along with Zion, he's got to make the All-Star game. He leads that team in points. He's pretty much their functioning offense. Him and Zion are their main two initiators of offense. So I'm a little surprised to see Andrew Wiggins get more votes than Brandon Ingram. On the Eastern Conference side, it came out as I expected. Jaylen Brown being 4th among guards is well-deserved because I'd argue he's been the best player for Boston this year in terms of consistency. But the name that really stands out from the great land of Cleveland, Ohio, Colin Sexton being 7th. And, they have Sexland over there, Colin Sexton and Darius Garland. I had to say that. Fans, I just had to say the name on the podcast. I had to say the name Sexland on the podcast because it's amazing. But he's turned in a career year, averaging 25 points, shooting amazing from 3-point. This is one of those years where you're like, yeah, I could definitely see a bunch of these guys making the All-Star game. This is going to be a year where, again, some guys get left off and we're going to be like, oh, they should have made it. There's a 100% chance he should have made it. Like with the Brad Beal discussion last year where Brad Beal averaged 30 points and didn't make the All-Star game. There's definitely going to be one of those guys who gets left off and it's like, wow, he didn't make it. And if we want to talk about guys who are having a great year, Gordon Hayward apparently going to Charlotte has revitalized his career.
He wasn't playing good in a blue state, so he had to go to a red state.
Oh, there it is. Oh my God.
It's true. It really is.
Got him.
Revealed.
Boy, nah, man. He saw what happened at the Capitol, and he's like, boy, I got to step my game up. Yeah, Gordon Hayward's been playing great for Charlotte. Charlotte's been one of those teams that's really surprised me early on this season. With the way LaMelo Ball have played. They don't play defense, but they're gonna score. And LaMelo Ball is slowly hitting his stride. Colby, I think I know where Colby's gonna go with his surprising NBA All-Star voting returns. There is an Oklahoma City Thunder player on this list, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. We haven't really paid much attention to the Thunder because, you know, they traded everybody that had any semblance of being good. But you
Other
know,
than Shea.
it's literally only Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
And Dort.
Kobe, what have you thought so far about his season?
I've been watching a lot more hockey than basketball. I've maybe watched a total of maybe like 1/4 of basketball this whole season, but I'm happy Shea's there. He's doing good. Lou Dort's the greatest player of all time, and that's it.
We are the Lou Dort fan club. Other than, you know what, we need to make ourselves a fan club. We're gonna be an Iggy Allen and Lou Dort fan club. I'll start that. This podcast is now a Iggy Allen stan account and a Lou Dort stan account. This is now a thing. This is canon. I'm letting you guys know we will only be posting content about Iggy Allen and Lou Dort from now on. But I think that'll be it, guys.
Mr. Lou Dort.
I think that'll be it for our normal shenanigans here at the U Press Play Sports Podcast. Thank you again for listening. Once again, from staff writer Zach Weinberger, editor-in-chief Colby Guy, sports editor Richard Pereira, and photo editor Eston Parker. I'm business manager. Let me say that right. I can pronounce Antetokounmpo, but I can't pronounce business. Good Lord. JP Acosta. Make sure to like, subscribe, review. If you don't give us 5 stars, you're going to make us sad. You don't want to make a bunch of poor college kids sad. Look at that face from Eston. That's pure sadness. You don't want to make him sad. But that's enough of our shenanigans. Have a great night. Have a great week. Have a great week, everyone.